Right, welcome to another super cool repair video from the Goat Shed. So today is Monday, August 15th, 2022. It's 12 degrees Celsius outside, which equates to around about 53.3 degrees Fahrenheit. So, being a Monday morning, we've just had the weekend, and you can see over in the left-hand corner of the machine is Skanky. Spanky's not here. He went down to the forgotten state of Tasmania over the weekend for their inaugural Taspin, and his carer hasn't returned him yet, and we're becoming a little bit concerned. But needless to say, hopefully he'll be back in good shape. Maybe. So, today we have a Gottlieb surfer in for some attention. We have our annual Pinfest coming up in September, which is next month of course, and the owner of this machine has brought it in for a little bit of a tune-up and a look at. So this surfer is in fairly good condition. Looking at the back glass there, it's probably an 8.5 to 9 out of 10. The only little blemish on it really is which is a mark from where they have that foam rubber. And there's one on the score reel, a bit of the white masking, but other than that, it's in really good condition. The playfield, yes, it's really nice too. Now we've got the glass on this today because it's getting ready to get packed up to go back, but yeah, that's nice as well. So the paint job isn't so good. It looks alright, but when you look at it really closely, it's not the best. So eventually it's going to get redone. For my money I wouldn't bother, but the owner really wants it done, so here, have a little look, see what you think. There it is. He feels it's been overdone with a speckling, which I suppose it has a little bit. There's a little bit of damage just here, you can see in here, this area, it wasn't repaired right, so he wants that done. Being a typical 1976 Gottlieb, yeah, the back's been repaired by the look of it, and he wants that done as well. So Surfer was a very popular game. This is a fairly clean looking machine in the back and underneath, but as I said, there's work to be done on it. So yeah, these machines came out in 1976. I think it was in the November. The IPDB did an update. They originally had this coming out in the October, but it came out in the November. So the rule set to this game is pretty simple. These rollovers here, as you get each rollover out, it lights up a yellow lamp to increase the hole value. So it's 1,000 for each yellow lit, or 100. When you get all the drop targets down and all those out, you can increase your bonus multiplier when these are lit on the side lanes. So that's 2 by at the moment, and you can get it to go to 3 by. You get double bonus on last ball. This light up here, this is controlled by the spinner, but every ball that comes out, it goes down and defaults to that lane, and as you move the spinner, the lights go off, so you can add a bonus. And down here you get an extra bonus, so you get 2 bonuses when you go down there. Add bonus down the side lanes, and you can get special or extra ball up as well. And of course this resets, so being a multiplayer game, you've only got the 1 ball to get the features in. Unlike a single player, which I personally like the best, you've got the whole game to get your features or specials up, and away you go. So that's the main difference between a multiplayer game and a single player game. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we see a lot of surfers, card whiz, quick draw, fast draw, that era of machine in the goat shed. And most of the owners, they played them when they were younger, etc. And that's what they do. Now, when this machine was recently purchased by the owner, it had been done up some years ago apparently. We're not sure where it got done up or who done it up. It looks like it's an Australian machine. So what we've now been faced with is when it's arrived, it's been reported as having a very loud noise when it got to fifth ball. Now, so it conjures up in the mind, fifth ball, okay, the last ball relay might be noisy. No, it wasn't. So the last ball relay would be the BX relay on this game. What it turned out to be was the trip bank. So you've got your two nuts to loosen the trip bank on each end. The nut on the right side was loose, and that's where the double bonus relay was, and it was making an ungodly buzzing noise because it was sort of hanging out of place. Now, we've done a whole video on the trip bank and some of the problems that can be caused when they're loose, so you always need to check your trip banks are tight and snug, and even nip those little nuts up with a pair of pliers if necessary, just to make sure they're tight. This has obviously come loose in transit. Now, the next problem we had was the player 2. The 10.9s was sticking when it was trying to carry over. Now, as I just mentioned, this machine had been gone through a while back, and we pulled that apart, had a look. The coil sleeve was okay. What it really needed was just the printed circuit board taken off, and scrubbed it down with a Scotch-Brite pad, and then just put a little dab of PBR grease on the little wiper fingers, and it's working fine now. That just causes a little bit of friction in there. That's one of the biggest problems with Gottlieb score reels, the rack and pinion. Where Williams and Bally used a direct drive, I think they were much more positive. A lot of people will disagree with me, but mechanically they work a whole lot better. Anyway, needless to say, Gottlieb were the kings of electromechanical pinball machines, so who am I to argue? Now, the next problem we noticed when we were playing it, so just getting back to that, we repaired that problem. The owner reported about the loud noise, and then we tested the machine. So we noticed that player 1 on the 100-point carryover, so when it got to 9 and it was to go to 1,000, it might add an extra 1,000 or an extra 2,000, which of course isn't right. Now, you'd normally say, okay, that could be the 9 switch on the 100-point reel is too close and it's touching twice, which can happen. In this case, it was fine. So then we went straight to the relay, the 100-point relay, which is the M relay. And what we found was that relay was very spongy in operation. Now, once again, we've done a whole video on how to clean and adjust relays and check for sponginess, and this is what it was. So we just adjusted the spring tension, the bias on the switches on the long blades, readjusted the switches. The carry, the holdover switch was a little bit close, we moved that, put it all back together, and away it worked. Now, the other thing we noticed was that the spinner, which is of course straight there in the middle of the game, was not scoring properly, the old spinner. Now, when the light isn't a light, you only get 10 points, and then when it's a light you get the 100 points. Now, the reason or problem was that it wasn't scoring consistently 10 points. Now, there's as you roll over each one of those rollovers there, the star rollovers, it trips a relay in the bank, sequence bank, at the back there, underneath the playfield. And then when it's finished, it does a sequence completed. So when the sequence is completed, it lights the 100-point scoring. So there's a make-break switch on the relay on the sequence completed. It wasn't touching real good before it tripped in the 10. So to give 10 points, just had to clean and adjust that a little bit, just a little bit dirty. So that was another easy and simple fix. Oh, and the other thing is the switch under the spinner was a bit widely gapped. We didn't like the look of that, so we adjusted that. So we thought, beaut, it's working now, let's play it. So we did, we played the game. We played a 1-player, a 2-player, a 1-player, and it was going good, and then left it overnight there the other day and came in the next day, and I think Graham's brother came down and played it, and all of a sudden it went all berserk on one of the balls. It moved from first player to second player and different balls, and oh, what's going on here? So the first place we decided to look, as it had been playing well, was the actual player unit itself. Now what we found, it contrary to the way it looks, it's just never been serviced. Now, one of the main things we do on machines when we get these in for a full job is to pull the player unit or every stepper unit down and service it. Let's just go and have a look what the problem with the player unit was. So we're at the back of the machine now looking at the player unit. But just before we go on to that, we don't say this an awful lot, but we go to a lot of trouble to make these videos for you viewers. It takes a lot of time out of our day, and in fact we try and do these things either before we start work or after. So we really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to our channel and that you give us the big thumbs up on our videos. Now, having said that, these videos hopefully will stay on YouTube forever so that future generations can repair their electromechanical pinball machines. But on to our main problem. What we found with this is the reset arm just here. That one. Now that's the one, it pivots on the famous nut and shoulder screw. So there's a nut just behind there where you need to undo that nut. They stick. Now this one had never been done. In the factory they must have put this little white grease on them at some point. That grease gets super hard and that reset arm sticks, and it impedes the operation of the escapement wheel moving around. Once again, we've done videos on all this, but the primary problem on this was the braid on it. This braid, we've put new braid on, was too short, and one of the snowshoes was sticking. So as it moves around, they're sprung loaded, and obviously if it sticks in between the rivets, which is this gap here of course, it might fall in at the wrong time, just as the head or lead snowshoe contacts. That one's slow at getting in and doesn't hit the contact at the right time. This all happens so quickly, of course, that can give you a lot of problems. So that primarily was our issue with it. So we put new braid on, stripped down the unit, cleaned it in the ultrasonic cleaner, lubricated and assembled it, and away it's gone. It hasn't had any further trouble since. Here is your relay bank up here. So just remember, we have the N, M and L relay. That one over there is the famous FS relay for the 0 or 0 to 9 match. And remember, on all Gottlieb games, the N relay is the lowest denomination in score. So if this was a 1960s game, the N would be the 1 point. But in the 1970s, they got rid of the 1 point and became 10 points. The M is the 100, although it would have been the 10 point in the early games, and the L is the 1000, or it would have been the 100 in the early games because they had a light for the 1000, if you recall. So all in all, that's everything that was done to this machine. It's ready to be packed up and go out to our pin fest. Now by now everyone's seen our goat shed tin signs, so we'll be bringing some of these over to the USA to give away as raffle prizes at Pinball Expo. So if you attend our seminar, you might be lucky enough to meet one. But if you do win one, there's a little bit of an extra thing that you have to do. You have to have your photo taken with Spanky, and you'll be published worldwide. So we look forward to see everyone in Schaumburg in October. And this has been another Goat Shed presentation.